Troika is a brand consulting, creative design, and content group that holds the view that brands are a company's most valuable asset and that the most enduring brands forge strong emotional bonds with audiences and supporters. To assist brands in converting audiences into ardent fans, they adopt a fan-centric perspective that guides the way they think, create, and design. Their craft is a blend of art and strategic thinking to create a holistic and meaningful brand experience that builds highly engaged, loyal audiences. Using immersive live experiences, brand partnerships, PR, social media, and influencer marketing, Mission is a communications company that helps brands stand out by interacting with consumers from a cultural perspective.
You're watching America Trends. I'm Mary Burt-Godwin, and I'm excited to welcome back our next guest. She is a personal growth strategist, a philanthropist, and an author of Build Your Village, a guide to finding joy and community in every stage of life. Welcome back to America Trends, Florence Ann Romano.
Hi, I'm so happy to see you again. How are you?
Great to see you. Remind me where you're zooming in from.
I'm in Chicago.
Chicago. Okay, is that where you're from?
I am, born and raised.
Oh, that's right. I seem to recall Windy City Nanny was your nickname a while back. Yeah.
What a good memory. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today. You know, there's so many things that we could talk about, but one thing in particular I wanted to hone in today that you talk about in your personal growth guidance for people is the concept of people pleasing. And it's an interesting thing as I've gotten older and been in personal growth journey of my own, is learning of how people pleasing, which a lot of people think is a good trait to have, is sometimes a negative thing, and it almost can make us martyrs, and it can make us unhappy in the long run. So let's talk about, you know, that impact of people pleasing, and what does it even look like?
I'm going to cop to it. I have a hard time with this in my life. I always have, because, you know, you want people to like you, or you want to make things easy on people. You don't want to be the problem. You know, that's always what you're thinking in your mind as you're people pleasing. But unfortunately, when you do that, sometimes that creates a lack of boundaries in your life. And, you know, that word boundaries, people always have a negative reaction to it. It's like a dirty word. They're like, oh, don't say that, because like, you automatically feel like you're defensive, like you're doing something wrong. But boundaries are not just for yourself. It's not just selfish. You're actually putting those into effect for other people too. It's to keep other people safe as well. So when we are people pleasing, we generally are not paying attention to the personal boundaries that we have for ourselves and other people.
I love that. It's funny, the term boundary does seem to be a negative term sometimes, but you know, there's a couple situations. I'm also learning about being codependent and, you know, this concept of what we think will please other people, doing it for them, but they're not even asking us to do it. So we're kind of stepping out of our lane and thinking, and then we want to be applauded for it. I mean, I'm catching myself doing this with my kids, and I think, just relax and let them do it, and if they need your help, they're going to ask. But it's a hard, that's our own boundary we would need to create, right? Like, we don't need to step out of, I don't need to step out of my zone or my lane to do something for somebody else unless they ask me. And then I can say, yes, I can handle that, or no, I'm not really able to do that at this time. But those are hard things to learn.
They are, because it's a fine line, I think, sometimes us trying to anticipate someone's needs and to be there for someone, to show up for someone, your kids or a friend or your spouse, whatever it might be. And then also, again, not swooping in and feeling like you're responsible. I just had this conversation with someone recently where I was talking about where I think we take a lot of responsibility on about fixing a situation or fixing a person. And that's not necessarily our job in life, to go fixing everything. We can be there to walk through something with someone so someone feels supported and loved and seen and understood, but not necessarily fix the situation. And I think it's easy for people pleasers to think, I need to be the solution.
Right.
I need to be the person that is going to make it all better. And then that puts a lot of pressure on the people pleaser to constantly feel like they have to be successful in that, or they have failed.
Yes, that was definitely a lesson that I learned, and also am still learning, continue to learn, is that, you know, if my kids, for example, want to gripe about something, I don't need to jump in and all of a sudden fix it for them, especially not in that moment. A lot of times they just want to be heard and me to say, that sucks, you know.
Exactly.
So, but it is also hard, let's say, being the parent or maybe being an employer, and you think, oh, I got to jump in and solve this for the person. But they could probably solve it on their own if we just guide them a little bit.
And usually it's a brainstorm. Usually it's collaborative in some sort of way. And sometimes it's just the space to know that they can work it out in real time with you. Even if you're not part of the solution, you're just that sounding board. So they feel like they're not in it alone. Kids want to feel that way too. So I feel like this authenticity, you know, building these genuine connections with people, that's how you start to be able to find what is healthy. What are those healthy boundaries, those healthy connections, that healthy community? Because when we get into that people-pleasing kind of ick, then all of a sudden we are not being authentic to ourselves, and we're also not establishing relationships with people that are necessarily people we should be having relationships with, romantic, friendship, whatever it may be, because you're maybe putting on a facade, putting on this costume of this person that you're trying to be to please that person, because that's what they want you to be, who they need you to be. So again, it's about really staying true to who you are, your values, and connecting with people based on that authenticity.
I love that. Okay, so many things are coming to my mind. So the word authenticity seems to be a little bit of a buzzword. We hear it a lot in all situations when we're talking about business, social media, whatever it may be. I don't even know if people that are inauthentic or maybe not being authentic to themselves even realize it. It's almost like something, because they're caught up in the people pleasing or the aspiring to be something. So I would think it's like, number one, what are the reasons we are getting into a situation, right?
Right.
And go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say that I remember hearing a few years, maybe 15 years ago, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no, when, you know, in saying yes to things people are asking of me. And I think that is a great way, right, to get at that authenticity, because then it's like, if it's not in my body to say, yes, I want to do that, then we say no, and then that's being authentic to ourselves. Is that kind of the right thing here?
Yeah, I think stripping it back even farther, you know, maybe would help people to also be realizing that as we make these decisions for ourselves about the things we can do, the things we can't do, and the things we think we should do, we have to actually ask ourselves, how are we going to deliver this news to the person in a way that they can hear and accept? Because delivery is key. Tone in life is usually everything. If you're going to be able to stick up for yourself and say, you know what, I can't do this right now, how am I going to deliver this message? It's okay to pause and take that breath to make sure that you're delivering it in a way that's going to be respectful, that's going to be compassionate, that's going to make you feel good about the way you delivered it. Because we go to bed at night so often and replay these conversations we've had with people, the things that we've done, and we're like, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. I wish I'd said that differently. But we live in a very instant gratification society where we feel like we automatically need to say the thing at that moment instead of taking the beat. And sometimes taking that beat, taking that breath, even with children, as you mentioned, before you're actually going to deliver that news or information or explanation, that you take a second to collect yourself. Because I guarantee you are going to feel a lot better about how you're going to address the situation if you can just take a moment to prepare yourself.
I love that. I have a necklace that has a little pause button on it because I'm like trying to practice the pause, because I do know that helps quite a bit. Now, let me ask you also, is in the delivery, a lot of times, especially the younger generations, are used to just sending everything via text. Yeah. And I'm watching coworkers sometimes have this conversation via text, and I'm like, how about you just pick up the phone so you can hear each other's intonation and how they are intending the message to be heard? Because I will hear something. My daughter got mad at me because I used punctuation in a text message, and she's like, if you use a period, that means you're mad at me. Right. So, you know, it's a good example of how about you just pick up the phone and have the conversation, right?
It's a lost art. Sometimes I feel people actually picking up that phone, and I don't know why. I actually did a poll on Instagram one day and asked people if they preferred a text or a phone call, and a majority of people said that they wanted a text message. Now listen, I have to cop to it. On my voicemail, it says I prefer that you text me, just so I know that you need to get my attention.
Yeah, that's for like
voicemail, right?
Quick information, but not for
information.
You know, a meaningful conversation.
Right.
Well, Florence, thank you so much for spending time with us today, because we're out of time, but I want to have you back again, and people can go, florenceann.com is your website, and social media, florenceann.romano, village and child care advocate, overall personal growth strategist. Such a pleasure speaking with you, Florence. And everyone at home, stick around. We've got more America Trends right after this.